Hello and welcome to the Wyoming NORML podcast, Meet the Candidates interview series. I'm your host, Annette Smith. Today, I have the privilege of sitting down with Wyoming's legislative candidates who are running in our 2026 primaries taking place on August 18th. Today's candidate brings his extensive background and various relevant experiences and fields to his campaign. And we will be discussing cannabis policy, opinions, and views during our time together here this evening. My guest is Mr. James Byrd, Democrat running for U.S. Senator. Welcome to the show, and thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for taking your time out and being able to address some questions that we have that residents of Wyoming are wondering about. And first, to just get started, if you want to just let us know a little bit more about you and what your background is and what your policies are and whatnot.
Well, again, thank you for having me. I was born in Cheyenne and grew up in Cheyenne, went to Cheyenne Central High School, graduated from Cheyenne Central High School, went to the University of Wyoming, was poached out of school by an oil exploration company to come work for them, doing computer science and then geophysics later. And then after that, after the oil business crashed, I went back to the University of Wyoming and started taking some computer classes, and then got hired as a computer consultant doing programming and building computer networks, which eventually turned into a whole drawer full of certifications about computer network security, server security, and all sorts of things like that. So I now do a little bit of consulting on the side. After that, I moved back to Wyoming and just kind of wanted to relax a little bit. And then I got drafted by my neighbors to run for the state legislature. Spent 10 years in the state legislature and left the state legislature in 2019, thinking that I was going to be retired because Wyoming was kind of on an even keel at that point. So, but not so. And some events here recently have got my attention. And that is why I am back in politics and back in the race.
I see.
A little bit of other background about my family is we've been here. So, yeah, there's a lot of people who say that they're Wyoming residents. My family homesteaded in Wyoming when it was still a territory. So right north of Laramie, between Laramie and Bosler, they were dirt farmers back around 1862. So we've been here 4 generations. I am actually the fifth generation that's been in Wyoming.
Oh, wow. That is really neat. You are a true Wyomingite then.
Yeah, because you'll hear a lot of other people try to tell you that they're from Wyoming and they've been here. If you ask them, really, how long have you lived in Wyoming? It's like, I've lived here 10 years. I've lived here 5 years. I've lived here, I think the longest one, lucky for him, is he's been here 15 years. But, in 15 years, you just get to know Wyoming. You have to grow up here to understand what Wyoming is really made of and all about.
Yes, that's so true. Being born and raised myself there, I can completely understand where you're coming from with that. And there are a lot of people that come in from other places and areas because there's a lot of really good job opportunities and living opportunities in Wyoming. And then people are able to come in and find home in Wyoming. But
well, yeah, Wyoming's one of those unique places where we welcome everybody and check to see whether you're nuts later. So, yeah, but that's okay. It's still a great place to be and to be from.
It is. And we just had our other guest join us tonight, Mr. Richard Dodson, Republican running for U.S. Representative. Welcome to the show and thank you for joining us.
Hi, sorry for being late. This is Twerp. He's decided he wants to join us today too.
Could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, Richard?
Sure. My short version of my resume is that I'm an actor and a singer, with a degree in Spanish and history that I turned into an IT career. I have only lived in Wyoming for 5 years, but I did grow up just across the border in South Dakota. And my mom's family has a homestead, well, had a homestead down just south of Sundance here. And so technically, I'm fourth generation on mom's side.
Oh, wow. That's pretty neat. I mean, South Dakota is a very close neighbor, very close neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah. I did take a 25-year detour to Texas, though, so I hope you'll be willing to forgive me.
Well, thank you and welcome back. If it's okay with both of you, we can go ahead and get started with the questions. And what I'll do is I'll state the question, and then I'll start with you, James, and you can answer first. And then Richard will move to you, and then we'll move on to the next question. So the first question that I have for you both tonight is, would you support a conservative medical cannabis law? And for those that aren't familiar with a conservative medical cannabis law, that's typically includes stringent regulations and restrictions designed to ensure legitimate medical use while minimizing potential abuse or unintended consequences. If yes, what would that framework look like? And if not, what concerns prevent you from supporting a conservative medical cannabis law? We'll start with you, James.
Well, thank you for the question. Yes, I would support that. If you look at my history inside the state legislature, I did support several cannabis issues back then. Not necessarily the full legalization, but the allowing of medical marijuana and the use that you're describing is inside this definition. So with some very strict guidelines and sideboards on that, yeah, it would be easy for me to support that.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. And we'll move to you, Richard.
So I probably would support medical marijuana because I'm actually probably okay with recreational use as well. So if what it took was if medical marijuana was really, looks like I've got another cat coming up. If medical marijuana was the way to get anything done, if that's the step that needed to be taken first, then I would support that.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. We will move to the next question. Would you support decriminalizing the adult personal possession, use, and cultivation of cannabis? If yes, thank you, and please explain your reasoning. And if not, what concerns prevent you from supporting the decriminalization?
Well, thank you for that question. That leads directly into the legislation that I brought before the Wyoming legislature several times to decriminalize the possession of small amounts of marijuana and a sliding scale of penalties that went with it. So the answer to your question is absolutely yes. And I still stand by what I did in the legislature is a very good idea, even though my colleagues, it's interesting. Most of them understood what I was doing, but they wouldn't vote or stand publicly and admit that. So it's a kind of an interesting thing, the schizophrenia that goes inside a legislative body. What they'll vote for and what they'll talk about supporting in the halls are usually two different things.
That's interesting. Thank you for your answer, and thank you for your previous support in that. And Richard, can we move to you?
Sure. So I have for a long time felt like alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco were all roughly equal in how they affect human beings and how they ought to be treated legally. Oh, this is Zorro. I have a house full of cats, and apparently they've decided to all join. No fighting, boys, not on camera. And I've gone back and forth over the years on which paradigm to use, the prohibition or the regulation paradigm. And these days, I'm pretty much of the opinion that they should all be treated the same as alcohol is currently, where we have age restrictions. The states are allowed to decide for themselves what additional restrictions they want to add to that, whether it be production or rules around dispensaries etc. Some states are more restrictive around alcohol than others. I would expect the same kind of thing to happen with marijuana as well. But I do think the federal government should be backing off on marijuana legalization, or rather going forward with legalization, backing off of criminalization at the federal level too. We've got quite a number of states now that have gone with full legalization, and for quite a number of years, and we've not seen, disaster strike or serious catastrophes of public policy or anything related to that. So I think we've come to the point where we've got the data now that we can say, yeah, maybe that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. We will move on to the next question. Do you support expunging or sealing past criminal records for people convicted of conduct that is no longer illegal or has since been decriminalized? James?
Well, thank you for the question. Yes, I do, but there are several caveats there. If this is a nonviolent conviction, we should look at it. If it involves a firearm or there's extended violence and things like that attached to it, I don't think they get this get out of jail card, if you will. But there are circumstances, and lots of them, that do surround these individuals who encountered law enforcement with illegal amounts of marijuana, and now it's on their record, and it is really actually ruining the rest of their life. Hence the decriminalization bill. I believe at one time that I did have a caveat in there for expungement also of offenses, of nonviolent offenders previous to this date. And, that gave a lot of people heartburn. Even when I brought the bill to allow felons to vote after finishing their sentence, which, by the way, did make it to the governor's office and was signed into law. It's been tweaked a couple times since I brought the original bill, but the original bill came from me, and I had lots of pushback in that from people who felt that felons just needed to pay that penalty over and over for the rest of their life. And in our society, the way that we are structured, I believe that that's wrong. And the majority of the legislature and the governor agreed with me. And so that's why that bill got signed into law. And I think this is right in that same venue, that some of these things, they need to be evaluated, obviously, on a case-by-case basis. But there is certainly lots of standing for sealing these things and expunging some records.
Thank you for your answer. And thank you for your support in that previously in the past, and bringing that to the people. You had some excellent points there. And Richard?
I would say, for similar to what Mr. Byrd just said, if there's violence involved, no. But for simple possession of small amounts that are clearly not intended for sale, then yeah, that's pretty nearly a victimless crime. And similarly for simply having used, operating a vehicle under the influence, I probably wouldn't expunge, but being found to be high while you're walking around Cody or wherever you are is probably not something that we need to continue to punish people for. And I really wanted to underline what Mr. Byrd said regarding punishing people forever. That really does seem to be part of the modern societal thoughts around crimes. I've spent the last 15 years working in homeless services, and we find that a lot of times people will lose their housing or have trouble getting back into housing after having lost it because of a criminal record. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to continue to punish people after they've already served their time by insisting that they aren't allowed to work anywhere or not allowed to live anywhere. And so to that end, I think if we are going to decriminalize marijuana in various different ways, then expunging the record of the people who are guilty of pretty minor offenses is probably helpful in a lot of ways, including helping to end homelessness. So that's the direction I would go. And I think there's all kinds of ethical justification for that.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. And thank you for the points that you made in that as well. And we will move on to the fourth question. If cannabis were legalized, how would you prioritize the use of any tax revenue? Mr. Byrd?
Well, I think the first thing that you do is take the tax revenue from the cannabis and reinvest it into research about cannabis, because there's still a lot of things we do not know about this herb. And so the more money that we can plow into research, the better the understanding, the better we can craft rules and regulations regarding it, and then more effectively how it's used inside the population for recreation or medical or whatever uses we find that can be derivatives pulled out of the THC and the other compounds that are found inside this plant.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for that answer. And Richard?
So I tend to agree. I think that is most appropriate at the federal level. While we certainly can't have state-funded research, the feds are definitely more geared towards that kind of thing. And so that's any additional tax revenue that comes to the federal government, I would definitely earmark that direction. I would also like to see state revenues earmarked for education, especially for education around the proper use of substances, whether it be alcohol or tobacco or marijuana or anything else. We want to make sure that kids know that you don't just grab pills out of mom and dad's medicine cabinet. We don't want them to be digging into anything else that is not appropriate to their age level. We want people to use whatever substances there are appropriately and responsibly. And so helping kids to learn the appropriate uses for any kind of substance, whether it be legal or otherwise, regulated highly or whatnot, is valuable. And of course, as I mentioned, I've spent the last 15 years working in homeless services, and you can always have more money in that realm as well. So those would be my three priorities.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. And we will move to the last question. If elected, would cannabis policy reform be one of your legislative or one of your priorities? And if so, what specific reforms would you pursue? Mr. Byrd?
Well, thank you. It would definitely be on my radar, but unfortunately, there are much bigger fish to fry. There are much bigger things that need to be taken care of, like the price of a gallon of gasoline and diesel, like the price of eggs and food on the dinner table, like your rent and your electrical bill, and just a variety of other things that are just issues right there. And then we have public lands that follow that up, which is directly going to adversely affect the entire Wyoming economy and workforce. So yes, it's on my list, but I'll be totally honest with you. It's not at the top of my list, but it is on my radar.
Thank you. And Mr. Dodson?
Yeah, I feel like I'm following Mr. Byrd very closely here today, which is a little interesting considering that he's got a D after his name and I've got the R after my name. But the thing that I would add to what he's already said is that, and especially in the House of Representatives, the House has responsibility for holding the executive branch accountable. And there's just not enough of that going on in DC. And that's another one of the reasons why I decided to run in the first place, to hopefully get the nod to represent Wyoming in the House of Representatives. So that's where my priorities would lie. It certainly would be on my radar as a thing that we should be thinking about, but it wouldn't be the first thing I'd try to get done.
Thank you. Thank you both for your answers. And that is all I have for the questions for this session. We can go ahead and we can move to share just a little bit more about your guys' websites, where they can find more, where residents can find more information about you and what you're representing. We can start with you, Mr. Byrd, if you want to tell us just a little bit more about your what we could find on your website.
Well, thank you. You can find a brief synopsis of my history about being in Wyoming, my work and background, my legislative background, some of my issues that are pertinent. You can also find that very important donate to my campaign link, because Wyoming is a big state. And like I said, gas is very expensive these days. So I like to, I was told by a very smart and sage politician one time that most elections are won at the doorstep. So it is what I try to do, is get around the state and have face-to-face conversations with as many people as possible to find out what their important issues are, because our current federal delegation does not represent the people of Wyoming. They represent the Beltway people, the people in the hedge fund boardrooms in DC, and the Silicon Valley bros. And we are not being represented. When I am elected and go to Washington, DC, I will bring that representation back to Wyoming. I will represent Wyoming people in Washington rather than the current group that represents Washington interests in Wyoming. And that's stated fairly clearly on my website. It also has contact information, how you can get a hold of us. And we are at the end of those phone numbers. So give us a call, send us an email if you have any question, and we'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you can find his website at byrd4senate.com. And Mr. Dodson, we will move to your information, if you want to share with us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the race on the Republican primary is a little different in that we've got one person who has withdrawn, but there will still be 10 names on the ballot for anybody who shows up to look at the U.S. House of Representatives. And the last polling that I've heard rumors about shows that maybe as much as 40% of the electorate is undecided as to from among those copious number of candidates which one they'd like to choose, which says to me that everybody has a chance to actually win. And so as we see on the screen now, my priority is getting everybody to vote, because whatever happens, whoever wins, it's probably going to be decided by a fairly small number of votes. And so everyone is going to be precious. So I get that I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. If you don't want to vote for me, I encourage you to vote for somebody. There are a couple of my opponents who definitely have some likability problems. And if you are someone who feels that same way, I encourage you to make sure you go vote for somebody else. So I do have on the campaign videos page a collection of all of the recordings of candidate forums and debates and such that I was able to find that I participated in. And so it is a collection of all of us sitting and talking about the issues and how we intend to represent. And I do have a couple of recordings that I made myself with some thoughts, kind of like campaign ads, except I've never paid to place them anywhere. So that's an excellent opportunity. If you can stand to listen to Republicans talking for 2 hours, it's a good place to learn how the different candidates compare to each other, and so make an informed decision.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. You're so right. Wyoming is one of those states where every vote counts. So people getting out to the primaries is very, very important. It's really determines how things might go in the state. So get out there and on August 18th and go cast your vote. But that is all I have for tonight. I want to just thank both of you for joining us. And on behalf of Wyoming NORML, for each candidate, we're grateful for your engagement and thoughtful responses during today's interviews. And we wish you both good luck, and we thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.